Hello again. Welcome back to this edition, workshop number 4, where we're going to be talking about shutter priority today, the another mode that you can use on your digital cameras. Firstly, before I start, it was a couple of weeks ago when we last had our show, I didn't mention about the book, which I want to introduce you to after every show. So this, in actual fact, is the book that I should have shown you last time with when we were talking about aperture. The aperture priority mode on your cameras. This book is called Full Frame. It's by David Noten. I cannot recommend it more highly. It's a fantastic book of landscape photography where David goes through all the different options that you will possibly come across in any given landscape scenario, whether it's a case of early morning, late evening, or late afternoon, early evening, that is, or whether you're just out there taking in the regular countryside, as maybe you're out on a travel around a particular country. Fantastic book, been put together really beautifully. Couple of images here just to quickly show you, as I like to do. I'm not geared up with the cameras, but you can see a lovely blurred image there of some monks, and then just to cap it all, I'll just show you one of his beautiful landscapes that David is well known for. Again, a beautiful landscape here showing the running waters of river. That looks like to me but somewhere in North America, so be interesting what that is. I could probably check that up later and put it in the notes somewhere. But anyway, that was the book I was going to talk to you about, and mainly to concentrate on the aperture setting of your camera, where you are in control of depth of field. But you probably saw from those two images that I showed you there, they basically showed an element of blur. And this leads quite neatly into the subject today of shutter priority. Why do we use shutter priority? Well, again, it gives the photographer the opportunity to control the camera. And in this case, he's controlling the camera because of the speed and the action that he wants to show. He may want to show a still, frozen image for a particular reason. And that's probably something along the lines of a sports photographer would probably be looking to do that more often. Or maybe the paparazzi of this world. They want a crisp, clear shot taken of the subject matter. And of course, the other end of the scale, choosing a longer shutter speed, around about 1/15 and 1/8, something which I really like to do, you get that blurred effect and you're really bringing some sort of visual art into your photography. So I think they're the basic reasons for it. I think the best thing for me to do is to take you straight to the screen share, where we can look at the potential options that you will have on your camera. Again, what I've done is I've chosen the Nikons and the Canon and my camera, the Fuji, to describe these modes to you. So let's have a quick look at the Nikon. I'll just blow that up a little bit for you so you can get a better view of it. Again, we're concentrating on this part of the dial on the top. Generally, I think Nikons are basically the same way with all their DSLR cameras, so I don't think I'm confusing the issue. But we have the P, S, A, and M modes. P is the program, or professional as we like to kid ourselves. A is for aperture priority, which we spoke about last time. Manual, the dreaded manual, which we'll come to next time. And this one is S for the shutter priority. So you would simply dial the S to this notch on the Nikon to put you in shutter priority. We then go to the Canon top plate, manual, AV for aperture, TV for your shutter priority, and again you would dial this to the notch for the shutter priority. On the Fujis it's slightly different. Fujis really do like to use knobs and buttons, which I enjoy using. So effectively what you would do here, you would set the lens aperture, which they have on the Fuji lenses, to A, so that's automatic, and you would in actual fact set your speed on the dial. So you would select a speed of what you want to take for that day. So from this one, it shows you from 1 second right the way through to 4,000ths of a second. It's a little bit more in-depth use of shutter priority. So I don't want to really confuse the issue much more, but I just want to talk more about the way the Nikon and the Canons use, because it tends to be the way that the majority of cameras are set up. And that is, you set the shutter speed with shutter priority. So you will have a command dial on the back of your camera, which in actual fact would you set the speed that you want, and the camera will automatically set the aperture according to the shutter speed that has been designated by yourself, and then of course according to the dreaded ISO. Now, for simplicity's sake, let's just assume you're leaving your ISO on automatic. And to be quite honest with you, the way these cameras operate these days, that is the best position for the ISO to be set, unless there's a particular reason that you want to set a particular ISO setting. Remember, that's referring back to the old film days where you had the slow and the faster film ratings, which led to the light hitting the back frame. I don't want to get too technical with you because I'm assuming you're new into photography. So why the shutter speed? Why does a photographer want to set the shutter speed? Well, as I said to you at the start of the show, it's primarily to concentrate on the process of freezing the action or blurring the action, depending on your preference. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try and get back to my my main board. Here we go. And we're going to look at some photographs taken using shutter priority. Let's first of all talk about action and stopping the action, literally as you would expect to see on the back of your newspapers or on your websites, whichever one you're looking at. I've chosen a couple of American football shots here, which I think explains it very well. Frozen the action completely here, even down to the water droplets, the raindrops falling from the sky. The shutter speed chosen has done this, but at the same time, the camera has effectively given the photographer a very shallow depth of field. And you will find this as you go for a shorter shutter speed, in other words, a 500th or 1,000 at the top end, the camera needs to see light. So it will automatically open up the aperture for you. And that would probably give you an aperture setting of around about 2.8, 4 or 5.6. So let's just see. That's my idea. Let's go on to 500px where I found this image and see what the photographer in actual fact done. I hope he's got the details in here for us to have a look. And as luck would have it, no, he hasn't. So we'll go on to the next image, where is another American football shot. I hope it's come out of there and go to this one. Quite amazing shot taken where these three players in actual fact, and and one helmet has come off here. Again, the photographer using a fast shutter speed, 500th of thousandths, and probably shorter than that. So let's again go to the 500px and see what in actual fact he had set his camera to. And here's the details here on a Canon EOS 7D. There you go, f4, quite a shallow depth of field. You can see the camera in the background there. There's no detail on him at all. It's ideal for an action shot. And the shutter speed is at 1250th of a second, 1 to 1250th of a second. So he's frozen it. And look, and you see the ISO. The ISO has been set at 320. So there you have it. The exact reason why the photographer has chosen, I'm assuming here, and I'm pretty certain he would have chosen to use a fast shutter speed to stop the action. So let's move on to other images. There's another one from this Antonio Bruce Lee Brown. I'll give him Brian Kuntz, the photographer, and he's taken some fantastic NFL shots. You can go on the 500px and look at more. Let me go back to the Pinterest site then, and let's have a look at some other images which have been created here. Now, this is totally the other end of the scale. Using shutter priority, the photographer wants to create a bit of art. He wants to create movement, blur. He's not worried about sharp focus at all. I very much doubt if this would have been shown in a magazine, or well, probably going to a magazine, but certainly not on the back of a newspaper. And it would obviously be shown on his website. So let's have a look, see what he's done here, this particular photographer. And I would think that's probably at around about 2 to 3 seconds. Oh no, it's 1/20th of a second. So reasonably slow. F8. There you go. There's the aperture opening up to allow the light in. Closing down to stop the lighting because we've got a long shutter speed. ISO 250. And, the lens was at 90 millimeters. Excuse me. Shot on a Canon EOS 6D. This was taken by Floor Y, or probably Floor Yi. Great shot, lovely visual artwork, and well worth looking at it, and a very, very good example of choosing a longer shutter speed to create this visual art effect. Another shot to show you the other end of the scale, this time taken at 1/80th of a second. He's frozen the action. A little bit of blur on the back there with that football player's arm there, and a little bit of movement here. It shows action, shows movement, and he's managed to stop the action. Let's go back to Pinterest and let's see what else I've chosen here. Just one second while I get my bearings on the Pinterest site. Photograph here of ballerinas. Classic example. I love seeing dance with movement. I'm not too keen on dance images. There's a purpose for them, obviously, but I prefer to see the visual art of the photographer coming out in showing movement of the dancers, and here you can see it. Beautiful shot. Love it on the scene. You've got a nice central concentration on her face. And we'll see what, in actual fact, this was taken at. There we go. F25. The aperture is stopped down automatically because the photographer is using a long shutter speed of 1/5 of a second. ISO 3200. That's probably because this was taken indoors and the light is fairly limited. Great shot by Carlos Chaqueda, I think I'll pronounce that. I hope I got it right. And congratulations to Carlos for a beautiful shot of these dancers. Movement. Love it. Absolutely fantastic. Let's go back to Pinterest. Move on. Another shot of dancers. Again, a very long shutter speed here, allowing you to see the movement. Again, ballerinas with a long shutter speed chosen by the photographer. And let's just see what the speed was there. 1/6 of a second, I think that is, at f5.3, ISO 100. So they've really gone for the low end of the ISO range, hoping to get as little grain as possible or noise in the image, using 270 millimeter focal length of the lens there. I'll just close some of these windows down because we're getting a bit jumbled up. I don't want to lose the series of images. Just move on. This one here, classic example of someone taking a photograph of passing traffic. This must have been a bus or maybe a lorry. And the shutter speed, I know, was at 4 seconds. And then we have a nice shot of a kiddie playing on his tricycle, where the photographer has used the motion, panning motion, with following the child. You can tell it's a panned motion shot because this is a fence at the back. You can see the fence has been stretched out, but he's managed to keep the pace with the kiddie on the bike. It's at 1/20th of a second, so he's done extremely well. Nice and sharp focus here, but movement in the wheels and movement on the ground. ISO 100, 85 millimeter, f22. Again, the shutter speed has controlled the aperture, and the aperture has had to close down to f22. But because it's blurred, we don't see the depth of field which we wanted to see when we were using aperture priority. Let's go back to Pinterest and just show you a couple more. The classic example of shutter speed priority usage here. A photographer from America, where he's panned with the cart, I think it is the stock car in America, taken by Son Press. 1/45th of a second, f27. Again, the aperture is closed down because it's quite a long shutter speed for the time of day. 100 ISO. Again, he wants to create very little noise in the image at 300 millimeter focal length of the lens. Great use of a panning motion. We can see it's panning because this blurred background and the stripes on the roadway there are stretched out. Let's go down one more. This particular image I want to talk to you about because I was really intrigued with this image. This is a very, very clever shot. Taken low down, as we can see. We've got blurred road, we've got blurred trees, we've got a blurred pedal, but a sharp spoke of the wheel as this cyclist is pedaling along. So let's just see what the photographer did here with his setup for his camera. I'm assuming he's used shutter priority here. f2.8, 120th of a second, ISO 170, and he's got an extremely wide angled lens there, 2.77 millimeters. That would be interesting to know what he's done. Taking it with a GoPro. There we go. So that shows you what can be done with these sort of cameras. But this is just a fantastic image. He's done a little bit of work in the studio where he's concentrating, keeping his yellows, and all the other colors have just been desaturated. And so that's an interesting shot there using a Hero 3. Great shot, superb work there by Eric Estery. So let's just go back one more thing to look at some other images where the photographer has stopped the action. And this is a classic example. The surfer, all these water droplets literally just stopped as they're spraying up. And he's got the surfer there following behind the boat, being pulled along by the boat. Another windsurfer this time. Again, just a little bit of blur for the droplets, but again, he's got this sharp silhouette. And I think we should check on what shutter speed he was using there. There we go, 1/1000th of a second at f8 using a 15mm lens. So on a ISO 100, extremely bright day, he wants to get as little noise and grain into the image. 1/1000th of a second renders it a silhouette. There's hardly any detail being shown through this silhouette. f8, aperture's closed down to accommodate the fact that he's got such a short shutter speed. Let's close down some windows because I don't want to freeze my computer up. And the last one I'll show you is a dance shot, which when we actually see the details, I think we were very fortunate that the the dancer could hold this position. Now, I thought when I saw this, it was around about 1,000, probably at 1,250, but he's taking this at 1/100th of a second. So that dancer was really holding that position very, very well. There's hardly any movement here at all. 50mm lens, f8 at 320 ISO. I'm going to come out of screen share now because one thing which you must be aware of when you're playing with aperture. Let's go back a little while. I'm not going to say pre-digital, but very close to the digital age. Cameras were developed, and as they went on, nowadays we now get image stabilization. Image stabilization effectively is the camera doing a hell of a lot of work for you, keeping that image still. Before that, photographers had to be very mindful of the focal length of their lens and the speed that they were taking the photograph. I'll give you an example. If, for argument's sake, the photographer was using a lens at 135mm, a great lens to use, probably in sort of portrait type work, but again, it was used obviously for close to sports work. The photographer had to make sure that his shutter speed was faster than 1/35th of a second. This maintained the fact that the image would be sharp. Anything shorter than that, you ended up with a little bit of camera shake. And some cameras developed a little beeping type noise that would beep off and say, oh no, you're shaking the camera around because you've got too long a shutter speed. So basically, we had to be mindful of 50mm lens. I'm going to be taking my shot at least at 1/60th of a second to counteract the possibility of camera shake. If there was some camera shake, we had to accept that and basically create it along the lines of it being a sort of like a visual art and accept the blur. So we probably would go to 1/30th of a second and say, I don't care. I don't care if it's blurred. I don't care if there's movement. That's what I want to show. Let's come up to nowadays. Present day cameras, you have image stabilization, and some cameras, in actual fact, you can shoot at 1/15th and 1/30th of a second and still get a very sharp image, even though you're using camera focal lengths of their lenses, at 50 and longer, at 100mm, 135. I think that probably would be about the limit, to be quite honest with you, using that sort of speed. But the cameras are so clever these days, they can actual fact stop camera shake. So you have to be very mindful of that. Now, if you've got a camera which is a 1.5 crop compared to a full frame camera, you had to multiply that shutter speed by 1.5. So if you had a 100mm lens on, you would basically want to have your shutter speed in excess of a 1/100th of a second on a full frame. But on a crop camera, 1.5 crop, you probably have to look at your speed to be 1/50th of a second. 1/150th of a second to freeze that action. This was before image stabilization, which some cameras are still around to it. Some cameras are absolutely superb with image stabilization, and others have a tendency to lag about. So you've got to be mindful of that. And it's a great rule to work with, because a lot of people, as I mentioned in my first show to you, don't get fooled into the fact that you've got a nice little kit lens, 1855. You want to go longer, 70 and 300 type zoom lens, because you want to get closer to the action. And so many photographers, amateurs especially, are disappointed with the results because they have chosen the wrong shutter speed with the distance that they're using on their lenses. So please bear that in mind. If you do want to buy a longer lens, 70 to 300, make sure your shutter speed is fast enough to counteract the length of your focal length of your lens. I hope that's made it clear. Again, I'm very, very mindful that maybe some people that are watching these workshops are new to photography, and I don't want to get too technical with you, because I think at the end of the day you'll just get lost, and that's the last thing I want to happen, because you'll get lost, you get bored, and you won't come and join me for these little chats and talking through what I hope you're learning from my experiences of photography. So let's just do a quick recap. Shutter priority. Why do we use it? We use it basically so that we can decide as the photographer as regards to what we want to show again to the viewer. Do we want blurred action? Do we want still action, stopped action, to show the details of everything which is going on? Again, sports photography and dance, some dance photography needs to be frozen still, especially for any type of commercial type work, or pamphlets and programs, especially that are going out. If you're looking basically to create some kind of visual artwork, a little bit of contemporary work, then you probably would say, no, I'm quite happy to go at the lower end of the shutter dial. So you're down about the 1/15th and 1/30th of a second. You've probably seen, I think I've shown you before, my project, which I'm doing at the moment, which is life at 1/15th of a second. And in this, I particularly decide that I'm going to shoot at 1/15th of a second, and the camera in actual fact chooses the aperture for me. Let me just come out of this particular board. Couldn't think of the name, sorry. And where is it? Life at my project, 1/15th of a second. All these images were taken using the camera at 1/15th of a second. It's a busker. He's still. He's not moving, but the rest of the people are moving around. Again, a guy handing out leaflets. He's still. People are moving around. Deliberately panned, but it's at such a slow shutter speed, I'm going to blur the cyclist. I'm going to blur the background. A little bit of movement, this guy in the window. And here, car, stopped dead still. It's not going anywhere because people are crossing the road, obviously, and the people crossing are blurred. And then another one here, which I'll finish on, these two are having a little bit of discussion of where to go to. He's not too happy. She wants to go and take photographs. She's moving away from him. Blurred movement, and he's still in the background. So that brings it nicely to show you how we I'll just find the stop and get back to where we are. I'll finish my short screen share there. So again, talking about the use of shutter priority in that particular project which I'm doing, I want to see movement in the streets, and if I can get someone that is still and showing the movement of something else, then that's what I'm looking for. So I hope that's helped your decision. The best thing for me to say to you is to go out and practice. Set the camera to shutter speed priority. You set the shutter on the dial on the back. I would suggest you started at a 30th and a 60th, and you can see which way that aperture sets for you, and you're then looking to take photographs of people in action and things are moving, where you can stop it still 1,000, 2,000 of a second, or if you want to go for a little bit of blurred action, and just watch and see how that aperture is automatically changed for you in these fantastic cameras that we've got. Let's not worry about ISO for the moment, the dreaded ISO. We'll come to that. I leave mine on automatic all the time, to be quite honest with you, and it gives me a range of 200 ISO up to 6400, and I'm quite happy the way that that balance works with ISO. So don't worry about ISO. It's not a big deal like it used to be in the old days. There was so much you had to change around and get ready when you were about to take photographs. So I hope that's helped with you deciding next time to go out and you're going to do some photography, and you may find using shutter priority is the better way for you to work. You don't like aperture priority. You're not worried about the depth of field. So that's something which you may want to just try out for you. I haven't forgotten this week's book. Fantastic book. I just love this book. It's by Daido Moriyama. Daido Moriyama, Japanese photographer, uses a small compact camera, walks around the streets and takes images which, when you basically open this, you'll think, well, I can do better than that. But it's his eye and the way he sees photographs and the way he takes them. The majority of them are all in mono. This particular book is all in mono. When I went to see his exhibition up in London, very, very grainy type images. And you when you see it, if I can get it, I don't want to... when you see them, you'll think, well, I can do better than that. But it's his art, it's his eye that he sees these photographs. I'm going to leave you with the famous photograph by Daido, if I can catch it quickly before the time's up. It's the infamous shot of the dog, which you'll see if you put in Daido Moriyama into your Google search. That's probably one of the first photographs that will be shown of his work. Absolutely superb work, visual art of the best description, really, all in mono, very dark, very somber sometimes, and very contrasty images. But hey, cracking me, what a great photographer, someone that I really just love looking at his work. So yeah, you can get that's available on Amazon, or take a trip up to London and go into the Tate there. They've got loads of the books in there. So getting back to what we're talking about, we spoke about shutter priority today. I hope it's been of help to you. Next time, I'm not going to say next week, but next time we're going to be talking about the dreaded manual, the manual mode on your camera. And everyone, basically, when they start off in photography, wants to steer away from manual. It gives them too much to do. But to be quite honest with you, if you manage to get used to using manual, your photography will literally take off. So I hope you've enjoyed the show, and thanks again for joining me. We've had some live viewers, which has been really great. One final thing, why not visit the Flickr site and put your images up there? I was going to mention this. I've just got a little bit of time to show this. Sorry if I'm going over the half hour, which I like to do. Got a few members that have joined us on this Flickr group, which I created. So go to Flickr and put in Live and Uncut Workshop group, and you can join myself, Peter, and we've got a new member that's joined us, two new members in actual fact, and they're pretty damn good photographers. I tell you, they don't need really to be watching this workshop, but Stephen Dan and Stephen Green, thanks for joining the Flickr group. and really looking forward to seeing your images up there. Peter's been putting a few up, which has been great to see. I'm not going to critique them this week at all. Great images being put up. I've put a couple up as well, just to keep it going. But why not join in and put some photos up there? And if I think I can be of help to anyone, I may make a comment. But it's certainly not my intention to be a critique session with Flickr until maybe we have a competition. Might put that one out one week. Hope you can join me next week or next time. I don't know the exact date. It's all on my Photography Live and Uncut website. We go to workshops and events. You'll see the dates. Hope you can join me next time when we'll be talking about the dreaded manual. All the best to you. Thanks for watching. Thanks again. Bye-bye.